Welcome to Movies We Love Recapped. Today we enjoy a 2024 psychological thriller entitled Long Legs. The film opens in Oregon during a cold winter in the early 1970s. A young girl leaves her house and spots a strange car parked on her street. As she walks towards it, she hears a voice behind her. She turns around to see an odd, pale man coming closer. He calls her the almost birthday girl and says, "He's wearing his long legs today." The film then skips ahead to 20 years later. It is now the 1990s. FBI agent Lee Harker is working with her partner, Agent Fisk. They arrive at a neighborhood to investigate a suspect. Harker immediately identifies the suspect's house. As Fisk approaches the house to investigate, he is suddenly shot in the head. Reacting swiftly, Harker draws her gun and rushes into the house. Inside, she finds the suspect sitting on his bed with his hands raised in surrender. Next, Harker meets with her boss, Agent Carter, who is clearly impressed by her sharp observation skills. He begins to think that Harker might have a special ability. Carter assigns her a tough murder case involving several families. In each case, the fathers killed their families before taking their own lives. At each crime scene, letters are found with satanic symbols and cryptic codes, all signed by someone known as Longlegs. Harker digs into the case files and recordings, searching for any clues. She notices that no clear evidence is left at the crime scenes. The weapons used, like kitchen knives, are always taken from the victims' own homes. It's as if the murderer has left no trace and somehow forced the families to act against their will. Carter later invites Harker to his home, where she meets his wife Anna and their daughter Ruby. Ruby gives Harker a tour of her room and learns that Harker once dreamed of being an actress, but chose a career in law enforcement instead. Ruby then invites Harker to her upcoming birthday party. Later, back at her cabin, Harker is working and talking on the phone with her estranged mother, Ruth. Suddenly, she hears a loud banging on the door. She looks out the window and sees a man standing in the woods. When she goes outside to confront him, she finds that he has already entered her cabin. By the time she gets back inside, the figure is gone, but he has left an envelope behind. Inside the envelope is a note instructing her not to open it until January 14th. Harker opens the envelope immediately and finds a birthday card with satanic symbols on it. Harker deciphers the symbols by matching them to Bible verses. The decoded message turns out to be a violent threat from Longlegs. The next morning, Carter brings Harker in to investigate another murder by Longlegs. He hands her a new letter, which she deciphers to reveal the message. Down low, too slow. As with previous cases, the father is identified as the killer. Harker and Carter then find the decomposing body of one of the man's daughters. That night, Harker stays at the station to analyze all the letters from Longlegs. The following morning, she presents her findings to Carter. Harker explains that each murder occurred within 6 days of the daughter's birthdays, all on the 14th of different months. She notes that these murder dates form a triangle on a calendar, with one date clearly missing. Harker believes this missing date is when Longlegs will strike next. She decides not to mention the letter that she also received from Longlegs. She suggests to Carter that Longlegs might have an accomplice helping with the murders. After discussing the letters, the agents investigate the Camera family, focusing on Carrie Ann, the only survivor of her father's murder spree. They visit the Camera family farm and examine the barn where the murders occurred. Under the floorboards, they find a lifelike doll made to look like young Carrie Ann. They bring the doll to the FBI examiner, who opens it up and explains that it was made by a highly skilled craftsman. Inside the doll's head is a silver ball that acts as its brain. When the examiner places a microphone next to the silver ball, it emits static noise, causing Harker to experience disturbing fragmented images. The examiner also mentions that he thought he heard the doll say his ex-wife's name. Meanwhile, Longlegs, described as having stringy hair, a bloated face, and chalk-white skin, visits a local store for supplies. He behaves strangely with a teenage clerk, who sees him as just another crazy local. After leaving the store, Longlegs returns home and vents his frustration by ranting and yelling in his car. Harker visits Carrie Ann at the psychiatric ward, where she has been staying since the murders. The psychiatrist informs Harker that Carrie Ann had been catatonic for nearly 20 years, until recently when a man named Longlegs visited and seemed to bring her out of her state. During the interview, Carrie Ann speaks in a monotone voice. She describes her mother as abusive and her father as a good man. Meanwhile, her father is seen playing with a doll that looks just like Carrie Ann. Later in the day, a priest arrives for a visit, but her father suddenly attacks him with an axe, killing him. At the same time, Carrie Ann's mother arrives and is also killed by her father. Carrie Ann feels a sense of relief at her parents' deaths and says she is now willing to do anything. Longlegs asks, even if it means killing someone. At the station, Carter reveals to Harker that he knows she had a previous encounter with Longlegs as a child, an event she seems to have forgotten. He suggests that she visit her mother. Following the advice, Harker next visits her religious fanatic mother, Ruth, who constantly urges her daughter to pray. Ruth tells her daughter that she's lucky to have survived and grown up, and it's only because of the sacrifices Ruth made for her. While searching through her mother's belongings, Harker discovers photographs of a mysterious, pale white man. One of the photos, taken by a young Harker, the same girl from the opening scene, shows Longlegs visiting her and Ruth. Harker takes this new information back to Carter. Using the snapshot, the FBI tracks down and captures Longlegs, who reveals his real name to be Dale Ferdinand Coble. During a brief interrogation video, Longlegs unsettlingly sings "Happy Birthday" to Harker. Harker then enters the interrogation room to speak with Longlegs personally and to find out the identities of his accomplices. He greets her with a mocking reference to her as the almost birthday girl, and talks about the day she became an FBI agent when she was 20. He tells her that they had a big laugh about it, but just him, not her. When Harker asks who is her, Longlegs explains that she is the seventh to face the same choice as the others: accept a gift and destroy it along with herself, or keep it and be forced to commit certain tasks. Longlegs cryptically warns that he will be everywhere once the work is complete with the father, who is downstairs,
Knock, knock.
and suggests Harker to ask her mother about anyone she might have been working with. After that, he takes a deep breath and chants, "Hail Satan," before violently slamming his own face onto the table, resulting in a gruesomely bloody mess. Then he collapses and dies. Afterwards, Carter chastises Harker for losing control of Longlegs, which has ruined any chance of uncovering his accomplice. He also informs her that Carrie Ann cannot be the accomplice, as she has reportedly jumped off the roof of the psych ward. Harker visits her mom's home with Agent Browning. When she enters the house, it appears empty, but Ruth suddenly appears behind Browning and shoots her in the head with a shotgun. Harker rushes outside to confront her mother, who is now aiming her shotgun at a doll that looks like a young Harker. Ruth declares that she is free from Longlegs' control, and as she shoots the doll, a puff of black smoke emerges from the silver ball. Harker then loses consciousness. Ruth's voice narrates a story to Harker, beginning with the day Longlegs first visited. She recalls how she begged him to spare her and her daughter when he returned that night to commit the murders. From that moment on, Ruth became his accomplice, delivering dolls he had crafted for the daughters of each family. These dolls were imbued with magic that manipulated fathers into committing murder. Disguised as a nun, Ruth delivered these dolls, presenting them as gifts from the church. Ruth also reveals that Longlegs had been living in the Harker's basement, making him the man downstairs. She defends her actions, claiming she did it to protect her daughter. The doll resembling Harker had been the psychic voice in her head, guiding her throughout her investigations. Harker wakes up in her old bedroom to find her mother gone. She hears the phone ringing and answers it, only to hear a creepy voice telling her that she's missing Ruby's birthday. Panicked, Harker rushes to the shed and jumps in her mother's car, speeding off to the Carters' home. By the time Harker arrives, Ruth is already there with a doll that resembles Ruby, and the entire family is in a trance. Harker tries to warn Carter, but he is under Longlegs' control, responding with anger and hostility. Ruth suggests cutting the cake, prompting Carter and Anna to head to the kitchen, where Anna is heard being stabbed to death. Desperate, Harker tries to stop her mother, but Ruth is determined to see it through. Harker shoots Carter before he can get close to Ruby, who is clinging to the doll, despite the chaos around her. Ruth, in anger, attempts to stab both Harker and Ruby, but Harker shoots her mother in the head. When Harker tries to destroy the doll, she realizes she's out of bullets and decides to leave the house with Ruby. The final scene shows Longlegs sitting in the interrogation room, tauntingly laughing over his victory. He ends with a chilling "Hail Satan" and blows a kiss to the viewers. The movie ends here. Please subscribe, for even more cool recaps.